Well, and a good morning to each and every one of you. Welcome into the podcast for The Point After on the Oklahoma Sports Network. And we're so glad to have you. And I've got a lot of enthusiasm because this is the most exciting time of the year, at least for me, when you kind of conclude fall girls sports. And congratulations to the Carl Albert Lady Titans winning a softball championship. And we had several OSN teams that were involved in that, including the Elgin Lady Owls, who lost to Carl Albert in the first round, and so end up losing to the then state champion Carl Albert Titans. So congratulations to the Lady Titans on a 5A softball championship. As we are making this recording on a Thursday, we're going to include our volleyball state tournament, which mainly will be up in the Tulsa area. And we have the Altus Lady Bulldogs, and we had previously the Altus ladies coach on about several weeks ago talking about this program that was only reinstated or started 7 years ago. And boy, they have been off on a tear this year and turning a lot of heads and saying, Altus, we know them for football. We may know them for swimming, but we don't really know them for volleyball. And hello, they're going to go up against Booker T. They're a fourth seeded team in this tournament for the state tournament of the 8. So they're kind of in that midway pack, and familiar names with Mount St. Mary's, some private schools, Bishop McGinnis, but they're going to play Booker T at 1:00. We are going to have that on a audio only presentation. So if you're catching that later, you can go back and listen to it. And that's because of the NFHS requirements for video exclusive rights with the OSSAA. And so we are doing an audio presentation. We do that for a lot of state tournaments, and we've done that for the last 10 years when it comes to state tournaments. That's the next best thing. My radio background will still say, okay, we can still have an audio presentation. So good luck to the Lady Bulldogs, and the 1:00 MacArthur is in, and also Carl Albert. So you've got 3 OSN teams in volleyball. Then you bring up week 8 of the football season, and we're going to bring in our special guest. I've got Tracy Mussett. He is from VDog Media. He is also part of the Oklahoma Sports Network, now calling the Jones program midway through, and we had to kind of had to sporadically take an emergency leave for one of our broadcasters. And I know with all your experience, you were the first call that I was able to make. And wow, Jones, we'll start off with them. What an incredible year. They're ranked number 1. Usually they're always trailing like the Washingtons, as far as a poll is concerned, but they are still undefeated. They are still on a mission, I think, from the disappointment of last year. But talk a little bit about these Jones Longhorns for a second.
Absolute blast. Really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come in and cover the Jones Longhorns this year. Pick up what is a really good football team, and to be able to broadcast their games. It's a joy. Their facilities are phenomenal. The support from the community, the coaches, the administration of the school has been phenomenal. And this team is just rolling on the field. I mean, they came into the season, they rolled off a huge win at 4A Bethany to begin, not to really begin their season, but early in pre-district play. They picked up that big win over Bethany, a game that they had lost in previous years, a matchup they keep on their schedule, and they just won in dominant fashion this year, and then rolled right on into district play, and they just keep rolling off the wins. They got the 59-19 win over the Millwood Falcons. Millwood, a contender year after year, seemed to be down a little bit this year, but maybe they've reestablished themselves after that loss to Jones. You have a quarterback in Asen Hansen who he's got legs. He can absolutely run the ball, but man, when he is on with his arm, he can sling it too. And it's back shoulder throws. It's timing throws with receivers running the routes the right way. I mean, it's not just your typical small school, oh, I got a guy who's open and I can get the ball close to him. He's throwing the ball on target, on time, in stride, and he's got guys that can catch it. And then they have a young man by the name of John Quay Johnson who has come in as a tailback, racked off over 200 yards of rushing last week. And he's not this huge, impressive large back, but do not try to arm tackle him. He is not going down if you just have an arm or a hand on him. He is breaking tackles, freeing himself up, and then he's got the speed to break away once he finds the open field. So they can do it on the ground. They can do it in the air. They can keep it balanced and keep the defense off track. And then defensively, man, they made a goal line stand last week against Chisholm, kept them out of the end zone. It was phenomenal. It was something like what we saw from OU against South Carolina, on that goal line stand this last week. So they've really got it going well. And Coach Witt, man, he's just phenomenal to work with as well and talk to. Very much professional.
Well, and a man and a team on a mission, and you could clearly see that in the beginning of the season, as you mentioned that matchup with Bethany, which is a couple of class size higher than they are, and usually you say, okay, well that's a mismatch, and so for them to be able to do that and make a statement and then still build on from that, I'm excited. I'm excited to see the rest of the way of how that turns out. Now I'm going to kind of turn our focus across the state because this is the time of year when you get into October where weather can be a factor. And I'm not really going to say fear factor, but that really kind of institutes with the meteorology forecast as far as the prognosis of a Friday could be not only a downpour, but a lot of possible lightning and thunderstorms with it. I know that there's supposed to be some rain come in tonight, like over in the metro area. I'm going to be covering the Newcastle MacArthur game. There's a 40% chance of rain there at that kickoff time around 7 o'clock. Over in the Southwest region where we are kind of based out of, and thanks to Cameron University and our podcast studio, where we're using the great facilities that they have here. But there's really no rain here on this side of the state. But because of Fridays, and no one wants a district game because it's very frustrating to get a game going and then it's kind of put on hold for lightning. And we've seen it. I've been in games like that where you and the teams are just sitting for an hour and a half after you've already maybe played a little bit of football, and then they get to halt it. Elgin had that experience this year already going to Dallas and Hillcrest. They went down there, late start. The Thunder came in. This was a non-district game, and it wouldn't let up. They had an hour and a half. They got back on, then they were taken off, and then they decided that, well, because Elgin had a 3-hour bus ride home, and it wasn't a district game to basically, conclude that. But these have to finish, and so with that, everybody started moving, and I got my first call, I think, at about 1 o'clock saying on Monday, we're moving our game from Friday to Thursday. I said, okay, now let me see the domino effect. And of our 13 schools, I'll tell you, Tracy, of the 13, only 2 are playing on Friday. Everybody else has moved, including the one that you're going to be doing tonight for Jones. All of that has been moved. Eisenhower could not move because they are playing now Northwest Classen, and they share a field with John Marshall. John Marshall already had a Thursday slated home game, so there really isn't anything that they could do. And Guthrie still kept the Altus matchup in Guthrie still on Friday. So that is a big showdown, and that's what I want to talk about a little bit about this Separation Thursday, as we're going to call it. And we're going to kind of talk about the 5A ranks, and then we can bounce around with some other classes about some games that you really highlighted. But we'll kind of explain that we're in a position now when you get to week 8 that there could be, and there is, in both 5A1 and 5A2, a 3-way tie for first place. That means they're undefeated in the district, and they have the maximum 15 points per game that you can have, and we're stuck. And so what do? Well, you got to play each other first. And so that's the good news, that the separation will start tonight. MacArthur will play Newcastle. Both of those teams undefeated in 5A1, and they will go head-to-head. In 5A2, the same thing as we mentioned with that game still staying on Friday. Altus and Guthrie, they both are undefeated, as is Carl Albert, with the most 15 points per game that you can get, with a 45 up to this point. And they have that, but they play each other. So this will start to settle out. What kind of sticks out in your mind with, you mentioned before we started this, there was about 5 key matchups in some games that you wanted to see for this week? Were you able to hear that?
I got you. Well, I cut out for just a second at the end, but I've got you back on now. So
it's up to you. Yeah, go ahead.
Those 5A matchups, and you mentioned Altus and Guthrie. I'm curious. Guthrie kept that game on Friday night. I don't know much about these two teams as far as the style of offense that they run. I'm curious, is Guthrie more of a ground game or a passing game? Do you know the answer to that?
Yeah, they're balanced, but Altus is all passing. Altus may not even run the ball much. I mean, they will. I mean, and that was reverted from what they used to be, a flex bone. And we had Coach Reed on a couple of weeks ago talking about those changes that he thought was necessary to match the talent that he's got. Oh, by the way, Altus 7-0 for the first time since 1969. Wow. And they've been 5-0, they've been 6-0, but not 7-0 in quite some time. And so they're making history after coming off of two challenging years for the Bulldogs. And so this will be a great matchup, but I think, if you're I'm going to use strategery. I know that's not a word, but, for your strategy of going up against Altus, throwing in the rain can be a little difficult. And if it's more rain on Friday, maybe it takes the advantage of the team that will run the ball. But Coach Beebe over at Guthrie, a solid defense, and he will come after the quarterback. Altus has a freshman quarterback that's Coach Reed's son, who's been phenomenal this year. He'll throw the ball all over the place, but with the rain and with the outside pressure that defense is going to bring, that's really what I'm going to watch and we'll be able to watch because most of the games will be played on Thursday.
Yeah, I was wondering, and that very likely is a strategic decision by Altus, by Guthrie, to go ahead and keep that game on Friday night and maybe take a little bit of an advantage of a wet and soggy field and wet footballs. I do recall back in the mid-'80s, Idabel and Clinton played in a state championship game. Idabel had speed and Clinton had a power rushing game up the middle, and the game ended up getting nicknamed the Mud Bowl. And Idabel just could not get any footing on what was a very muddy field that night, and Clinton dominated in the trenches. So maybe Guthrie's counting on something like that. But in 5A this weekend, you're talking about that separation weekend in 5A, Collinsville at Pryor. I've got Collinsville ranked 5, Pryor ranked 6. Pryor 7-0, Collinsville 6-1. Their one loss was to Delp City, who Pryor still has not played. This game could have huge bearing on, or does have a big bearing on district championship versus district runner-up here. And last year, Pryor beat Collinsville 37-36 in Collinsville. Both teams seem to be very strong this year. That's going to be a fun game to watch tonight. And then, of course, we have the Altus Guthrie game. Now, Guthrie won that one by 22 last year. Again, that game was in Altus last year. It was in
Altus. That's right.
Altus they're on a roll this year. They've got some things going, and really curious what kind of effect that the weather's going to have on that game. And of course, the MacArthur Highlanders, 6-1, 3-0 in district. They are playing the Newcastle Racers, who are also undefeated in district. Both teams, their scores against common opponents are very similar. Yes. So, the winner of this game is in control of their destiny when it comes to a district championship, because they'll remain undefeated in district play. Newcastle won on the road by 4 points last year. Yep. How does that one play out this year? Going to be a phenomenal game. It should be a nail biter right down to the wire.
Well, I'm going to be able to help call that game on the one side for the MacArthur Highlanders, which I am in the booth for, and looking forward to it. It's going to be a great element. I've been in Newcastle before on Newcastle Friday night footballs. It is still got the small town feel of it, and you're the south side of Oklahoma City, but coming up from 4A and then jumping into 5A, still have that kind of feel for it. People up against the fence, they'll pack it up. I've seen them play against Blanchard and Tuttle and Bethany all in there in those locations. But it's going to be a great night, for both sides. We'll pack the stands and we'll just kind of see. But yeah, it's in the driver's seat, because then Bishop McGinnis on the outside as well, the other undefeated team in 5A1, who just beat Duncan coming off of their last week's matchup. And so this will all separate out, because then Newcastle will turn around and play Bishop McGinnis, and then MacArthur will play Bishop McGinnis to end out the season in week 10. So when we say separation, these 2 weeks are really going to, and it's going to go across the district. And I was listening to the Huddle program with Chris Evans from the Guthrie News page, a little bit of clips, and he was saying, how many undefeated teams are there in the state of Oklahoma right now? Would you take a guess, or do you know?
I don't know the answer to that, but I would venture to say that there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 16, 17 teams are undefeated right now.
I say about 42.
Wow.
Teams. And when winless teams are just as much. I think it's like in the 40s, 41. So, I mean, it's kind of like on the top side and then there, but then these weeks really kind of neutralized a lot. Now, we kind of really stayed in 5A, and I know we gave a little Jones review. Is there anything else that sticks out in your mind across the state about maybe games that we want to kind of key on for this week?
Well, I'm going to highlight one more game in 5A real quick. This one is between two one-loss teams, but in District 3, Booker T. Washington travels to McAllister tonight. And the Hornets were ranked high early, but they dropped games to Del City and Shawnee, and the McAllister lost all 3 non-district games to 4A4 teams. But both teams seem to be playing pretty well right now, and I think that game could have some real significance in the standings and who has a leg up on positioning in the 5A playoffs. So watch that Booker T. Washington McAllister game closely as well. Going to be a great game in Mustang tonight.
Okay.
Number 1 team in the nation in many ranking outlets going to Mustang. Mustang has had some challenges this year with Jaden O'Neal. Their Florida State commit quarterback has been in and out with some injuries. And from what I'm understanding, he should be close to 100% tonight. Both of their losses, their loss to Broken Arrow and their loss to Jinx, were impacted by his availability. And those were close games. So while I don't expect them to upset Bixby,
right,
it could be an interesting game for much of the game tonight if Jaden O'Neal stays healthy. So you might want to keep an eye on
it's
that.
got to be anything better than 92-0. I'll just say that.
Wow.
From last week with what Bixby was able to do. And yeah, not only gets all the attention in the state, but the attention in the nation. And, to Bixby's credit, their starters were pulled in the first quarter. I mean, were pulled fast. And you can't discredit JV players that work just as hard and want to get in there. And, they were playing, their subs. So it wasn't like they were trying to run up on anything. It was just that's the kind of program that they have. And so, respect it or not, throughout the state, but now the nation's looking at Bixby as well.
I'll make a real quick comment too. There were just a fire of social media posts about the Oklahoma Secondary Schools Activities Association needs to do something and allow these schools that are struggling to compete in 6A to drop down to a lower class and play lesser competition and things along that lines. And this is VDOG's opinion on that, if you will. OSSA doesn't need to do anything to allow them to go compete against smaller schools. School administration and coaches, if they feel it's necessary to rebuild their program and gain some momentum, need to drop out of the OSSA competition for a couple of years, schedule smaller schools, work and become more competitive, and then once they're ready, rejoin the OSSA competition. It's within their rights and responsibility to take care of their program and rebuild it if necessary. It's not the association's responsibility to allow a school with 2,300 students to go play a school with 400 students.
Right.
So administrators can do that on their. Guyman has done that.
I mean,
yes.
Well, and theirs was for travel purposes, and we understand where Guyman is geographically. And when you're playing in 5A1, and 5A1 was affected by that, by not having the 8, they only have 7, and that makes other teams like everybody in the district, if they want to get 10 games, to pick up another non-district game. MacArthur took up Ponca City, by the way, in addition to the 2 Lawton schools in Elgin, so that made 4. But I know, speaking for Coach Manning, he said, I want to make sure that the kids get 10 games, not just, we'll have another, a bye week because of a team that's not involved in the competition part of it. So, yeah, I think that is an alternative. And I think the OSSAA, to their credit, has really, and now they've made the announcement with basketball, by the way, in case you missed that press conference, that they have separated the Bs now. There's going to be a new state champion in basketball, B1 and B2, because they're going to go down and they're going to draw the line. But they started this many years ago. If you remember, all the complaints were the schools that never divided up into 3s, and we'll use Jinx, Union, we'll use all of those as examples. They had one school, and they had a higher ADM than the ones in the metro they were playing. Well, you had 3 Putnam City schools, you had 3 Edmond schools, you had the 2 Norman schools, and so you were at this precipice where, okay, you can't force the big school to say, well, you need to separate and just create 3 high schools. Or they never mentioned that. They always said, well, why don't you combine all 3 schools and have one athletic program? Well, you get rid of the history, you get rid of the school's identity, just so you can compete. So after some convincing, the OSSAA divided 6A1 and 6A2, and that separates that. And so then you have, okay, now it's a little bit more balanced. And so they didn't stop there in the recent years, doing the same thing in 2A, which you've seen, and split up those where, there's kind of a collaboration of a lot of talent on one side with a little bit of ADMs. And so they're going to do that with basketball too. So I think that's another way of doing that. But I think you're right. And as far as trying to make a rule, that's not really going to help either.
Right. Well, dropping back to those other games in 4A, there's a couple of games to watch tonight too. Ada at Broken Bow. Big game. Ada ranked number 3, Broken Bow ranked number 5. They're in district together. Broken Bow lost a game to Salisaw already, who's right in that mix in that district. And then also a game that is on the Oklahoma Sports Network, Ardmore at Bethany tonight. Now, Bethany has dropped 2 games already, but this game still has very significant impact on district standings and therefore the playoff picture down the road. So Ardmore at Bethany, I've got Ardmore ranked 10th, Bethany out of my rankings right now, but a very, very big game between Ardmore and Bethany. And it looks like the Ardmore Tigers have started to improve a little bit. So you're
playing your best ball at the end of the season, which, that's really where it counts. And Bethany, like you said, because of losing those 2, are on the edge. And this is the lock of where we talk about a 3-way tie for first place. And this is worse, 3-way tie for the bottom end. So as the athletic director from Bethany told me, a lot on the line. You could finish second in your district, because you got Tuttle up there in the big lead. And then you could either be second, third, or even out of the playoffs with just this game right here. So yeah, circle that on the calendar. That's going to be something that, and especially for Bethany at home, they're going to want to get this win in a big way.
Absolutely. And boy, being out of the playoffs hurts. And knowing that you could host a playoff game versus ended up 4th and having to go play the district champion from another district is, do you win or do you lose when that happens?
Well, that's true. And so, and it's good to reiterate for people. I think most people understand this, and I'll use the Duncan and Bishop McGinnis game last week. So it's down in the 4th quarter. Bishop McGinnis has pretty much wrapped this game up, but they don't have their maximum 15 points. I know it's coming from a coach's standpoint. Hey, these district points are very, very important for us. We want to get the maximum. So there's no running up a score on somebody. It's 15 maximum points. So they have 11 with 18 seconds to go. A fadeaway in the corner in the end zone. Bishop McGinnis hits their receiver, and he just kind of, turned his defender around and catches it. And boom, now you got your 15 maximum points. So I said, I saw what was coming as just a viewer. I said, they're going to throw this. If you think that they're just going to run the clock out because they got the win, they want the win and the 15 points. And so heads up to Bishop McGinnis. They saw an opportunity and they took advantage of it. So some fans that don't know that ruling will look, well, why are they trying to run up? The game's pretty much over and there's only 18 seconds left to go. Well, those points in the situation that we just talked about, whether you're hosting as a 2nd seed or on the road as a 4th seed, is a big difference.
Yeah, even if you're up by 14 and there's time left on the clock, that one extra point could make all the difference in your playoff picture and seeding. Yes.
Well, Tracy, I'm going to have you on again and again because I know you do some great graphic work for us that I've been able to use on our coaches show is for the district standings. You got and there's a lot of numbers in that, and I always give credit to our numbers guys because I'm going to lean on you and also Chris Evans from the Guthrie News page. He geeks out on that stuff about like next week. We say this has to happen. This person needs to beat this person with this many points, and all the formulas that come down to weeks 9 and 10. To decide district matchups, for these playoffs because they take the top 4 out of your 8 in the district. Ones play 4 in the crossover district, and let's get it on. And by December, we'll be crowning state champions.
Yeah, it's right around the corner. I mean, we are coming right down to the wire in the regular season right now. For the teams that make the state championship, their season's only halfway through.
Right.
But for everyone else, it's win or die now.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I appreciate it. Appreciate all your insight, and we'll be VDog Media. Give a little shout of how people can connect to you on social media as well.
So on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter or X. Yeah, I do a little bit on TikTok. Mostly X and Facebook is where you'll find material from me. But it's at VDog Media, and VDog is VDAWG, VDog Media. It's the same user ID across all the platforms. I was able to get that consistent, and that's helped me out a lot. Appreciate the follow, and appreciate you sharing my content. I do rankings every week across all the different classes, including 8-man football. You'll find the district standings there in a graphic and colorful format with team colors on them, and all that. Try to make it fun, and it really heats up for me late in the basketball season when I start doing basketball playoff brackets. That grandma and grandpa who have never tried to read an OSSA basketball bracket can follow my brackets and stay on track. So
that's good.
Yeah. So appreciate the follow and appreciate the shout out there, Eric.
Yeah, when you get the video too, that you now one thing, disclaimer that I said that I didn't use purposefully, and you'll know why when I say this, is you kind of give your opinion of your polls and your rankings and the top teams in this. But if I start doing that with the 13 teams on our network, I always get poked by people that either feel left out, feel jaded, feel like they didn't get the credit they needed. Because, you think about that last year, we had a successful, great playoff run in football and ended up having 2 state champions in the end with Carl Albert and Elgin. Well, success to all the other programs, but it's I got to be very careful about when I put our stamp of name on what we think is the top because we represent so many of the great schools in our network. And so if you're wanting to add a school to us, we'd like to have a talk with you as well. And for us, you can follow us on all of our social media platforms, whether you're on X, whether you're on Facebook, on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel. But the best way to connect up with us is download our free app on Apple and Android devices, also in home devices, Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV. So for Tracy Mussett from VDog Media and myself, Eric Sherham, bidding you a pleasant good day, and we'll be around the corner with so much to talk about in sports across the great state of Oklahoma. This has been the Point After podcast on the Oklahoma Sports Network, live from the Cameron Studio podcast room.